Here we are, round 3 of the Excel World Champ tests, and I want to say thank you to everyone who's stuck with me here and going through all these blog posts. I know it's a lot. I really appreciate you tuning in, and hopefully you're learning something from it. That's the whole reason we're doing this. And I'll also say you might sense some excitement in my voice. That is because we are looking at Data Relays Part 1, and it is an extensive Get and Transform test question. And I really love working with this tool. We showed you a little bit of how to use it in round 2. Round 3 gets a lot more intense. And I'm sort of just geeking out, getting excited to show you all the stuff you can do when we dig a little deeper. And I'll point out this question and the ones that follow in round 3 were a lot tougher. And the reason was this was the semifinals. We were trying to make it pretty tough so that the people that could emerge as finalists were ones who really had the skills to shine in the finals. And so I apologize if you made it this far and the tests were either really tough or taking a really long time. But again, hope you learned something from it. Hope you're able to take what you might have learned in doing the test and use it other places. So we will get started here, and quickly to go over what we're looking at in part 1. We have got 3 tables here. These are race results from the women's 400-meter race. This is the semifinals. There were three races or 3 heats. Each table is one of those heats, and we've got a task to use Get and Transform to combine all the races, calculate the age of each one of these runners as of the race date, August 14th, 2016, and then produce a true-false column that says true if the athlete went on to the finals from these semifinalist races, or if they were, or false if they did not. So going along with our theme of round 3 being the semifinals for you guys, we had to check who could make it to the finals out of the semifinals in the women's 400 meter. So what I'm going to start off with is actually just doing a quick example of how we would shape one of these tables. So I'm going to click into table 1. We'll start with the first heat, go to the data ribbon, and click from table to pop open the query editor. So the query editor is opening up here, and we've already got a couple steps done for us. It's grabbed the data out of the table, and it has changed some of the data types for us to make it a little easier. And I'm going to start with the first step of calculating the athletes' ages. And to do that, I'm first going to figure out what their birthday is. So we have here in separate columns the year, month, and day of their birth. And we need to turn that into a single date so we can calculate an age. So to do that, I'm going to go to the Add Column button here. And what I want to do is create a birthday. To do that, I'm going to need to combine the year, the month, and the day. And so, like I said, we're adding this custom column. We're going to see a little bit of that M language. It's called M because in Power Query, you're doing mashups all the time. We're going to do, we need to combine a date. And we have this little option here. If we do ampersand date, we can create a date value by putting all of its components in. The components being a year, comma, a month, comma, a day. So if I put all that together, I am going to convert these 3 columns into a single birthday. And that's what we see here. I've got May 4th of 1992 appearing as a birthday. So now that I've got a birthday, I see here it's actually showing up as type any. I'm going to go ahead and make that a date, just so there's no confusion about it, and you see the symbol changed. And let me also go ahead and rename these just so I'm very clear on what I've done in each step. So I added a birthday here, and then I changed the birthday type. So let's say changed birthday type. So now I've got a birthday, and I need to calculate the age. So again, I'm going to add another custom column. I'm going to call it age, and I need to calculate the age of someone To do that, we'd need the race date, which we said was in 2016, August 14th. So that's our race date. And now from that, we're going to subtract the birthday. And if I just click OK, you'll see I get a new age. It's this long odd number. What's really happening here is it's converted it to a time or to a date and time. But this long number is the number of days. So let's go back in here. Click the settings button. What we're calculating is the number of days between the race and when someone was born. If we want to convert that to years, I'm just going to divide it by 365. And you could do like 365.25 if you want to account for leap years. That's all going to be fine. At the end, when we did the checks on people's submissions against calculations, we made sure we rounded everyone's answers just to like a few decimal points to make sure that depending on how you might have done a divide here, you didn't get counted. You didn't get penalized for maybe using 365.25 or whatever might have been done. So this should now be an age in years. If I click OK. And just to confirm that, I'm going to go ahead and change the data type to a decimal number. Now you see you're getting some ages that probably make a little bit more sense. And again, I'm going to rename these steps so we know what we did. I added the age column, and then I changed the age type. Okay, so we've now figured out the ages in years for all of our runners. Our next step is I'm going to sort this by their result time. So I want to see who are the winners of this race, who are the top performers. So I'm going to grab result time and sort ascending. That's going to put the fastest time on top, the slowest time on bottom. So now I know that the first person appearing here is the winner of the race. Second person is in second place, etc. So what I'm going to do next is add another column, and I'm going to add an index column. And I'll say from 1. I'll do all these clicks and then explain what that means. So this index basically adds a counter to your rows. So you see I chose to start at 1. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Very nice and easy. If I had chosen instead to start at 0 or a custom number, it would change that ordering. But basically just gives us a counter to increment through and basically give an identifier to every row of our column. Because we sorted by result time and then added this index, what we've essentially done is given the ranking that each person was. So this was the first place winner. This was the second place winner of the race. And so I'm actually, instead of calling this the index column, I'm going to modify this a little bit here, the code that was produced, and say it is the race rank. You see that? I get that updated statement there. And let me also rename this to added race rank, just so we're really clear. So now I've got everything I need here to figure out someone's age and where they placed in the race. So this query looks good to go. We've got everything organized. The one thing I want to do is I want to rename this and just call it race 1, just so we know what we're looking at here. We figured out and formatted race 1 the way we need. So I'm going to go up to the home ribbon, click close and load to, and this is just an interim step. So we talked about this. I don't really need it anywhere in my spreadsheet. I'm just going to do only create connection. I don't need to add it to the data model. I'll click load. The queries pane should open up there. There it goes, race 1. One more thing I want to do here, because we're going to be building out a lot of queries, is I want to get organized. So I'm going to right click on the query and hit move to group. Create a new group, and I'll call this group the answers for 0101. So this is just as we build out more queries, we'll keep it all together, organized with this answer 0101. So the next thing I want to do is what we did for race 1, we need to repeat for race 2 and race 3. There are a few different ways to do this. Actually, if we get more advanced, I'd really love to go in and talk about maybe query functions. But to keep things maybe at level 200 for now, we're going to just do some duplication of our query. So I right-clicked on race 1. I'm going to hit duplicate. Whole new query editor is going to pop up. It's the exact same steps we saw before. Everything we did. You see it's just given it a different name. Now we want to apply this to race 2. So I'm going to say the name is race 2. We need to do all the exact same things we just did, except on a different source table. So I'm going to click back into that step. And you see the source step said, grab from the current workbook the table named T010101. That was our race 1 table. Well, I know that the race 2 table is T10102. So if I hit enter, now this step is actually looking at race 2. You saw race number changed, and all the exact same steps have applied. So now I've got a scrubbed and sorted out race 2 data set that I can have as my new query, race 2. So I can just hit close and load because it's copied over from race 1. It's going to have all the same properties, only a connection, not loaded to the data model. And guess what we need to do? We want to do the same thing for race 3. So let's just go ahead. I could duplicate either race 1 or race 2. Going to duplicate it, and we will call it race 3. That critical step, of course, is just going back up to the source and changing our source table, table 3. Race number changes, everything looks good to go, and I'll close again. So what we've just done is the exact same set of steps on 3 different tables, and it just goes to show you how nice it is to have these get and transform tools, how easy it is to make any sort of action we're doing really, really simple, repeatable, and have this automated approach to grabbing and shaping data. And again, I'll say what we just did, I would call sort of the level 200 approach, where we're going in and fiddling around with the code a little bit to get exactly what we want on different data sets. The level 300 version I won't go into here, but there are great, powerful tools within Power Query and Get and Transform that allow you to basically turn a query into a function so that you could just repeat it all over the place wherever you need to by passing in parameters or variables into your code. Like I said, that's a level 300 thing. It does involve actually opening up the advanced editor and playing around with it a little bit. I won't go into it here, but if you're curious, definitely go out there. It's easy to search on the web for Power Query parameters or Power Query variables or Power Query functions as great options for drilling into that. So I'll stop my soapbox for now and get back to the problem at hand, our actual question. We still have quite a bit to do, but it's going to be pretty easy. We haven't even done the first step, really. The first qualification asks us to combine the data from all the races. We've got what we wanted figured out on the individual races, 1, 2, and 3. Now we need to actually combine them. So if we go up to the data ribbon and go to new query, you're going to be shocked to discover there is a combine queries option. And so we have 2 options, merge or append. Merge is when you want to, really it's when you want to combine, I would say, columns from different workbooks. So you've got, or sorry, not workbooks, but queries. So, a great candidate might have been one of the others we had looked at in earlier rounds, where maybe we've got athlete names and their result times in one book or one query, and in another query we've got their countries, and we want to apply that country information to each athlete. That would be a merge. On the other hand, an append, and the drawings really show it, append is when you want to add more rows. So this is a great example here, race 1, race 2, race 3. They all look the exact same, and they don't have to look exactly the same, but the more like they do, the better. Basically, we want to combine them so that the rows from all these 3 different queries come together to be one single query or one single table. So I will hit append, let the query editor open it up, and while it's opening, I'll give my summary again. Merge is really great for combining columns. Append is really what's really great for combining rows. Okay, so we've got this little dialog to help us. We need to append some tables. I'm going to say we append 3 tables. And we've got 3 tables to choose from. Race 1, click Add. Race 2, click Add. Race 3, and you'll see I accidentally got click happy there and had race 2 in there twice, so I'm going to take one of those out. Otherwise, this would actually just keep appending them, and so I'd get my race 2 information duplicated in my final table. So race 1, race 2, race 3, I'm going to click OK. Now the query editor will open up. You'll see it's already started to build a little bit of code for us, and there it has it, append 1, our name here, but you see the step it wrote was table.combine, race 1, race 2, race 3. Really, really simple, but really, really straightforward. What's just happened here, all our different races come together, and you can see it is that full calculation we did, including the information about the race rank. So this, again, actually is going to be useful to us for a few steps. So I'm going to want to keep it as an interim step. So I'm going to give it a name that makes sense to be maybe combined races. And again, I'm going to save it as its own query. Close and load 2. I might have disappeared there. Close and load 2. And again, only a creation, not in the data model. We'll load it. It dropped down into our other queries section here. It is part of the answer 1 section, so I'm going to move it to that group. Okay, so that all looks good. I know it's a little bit convoluted to build out race 1, race 2, race 3, but we now have very clear steps to get to this combined race data set. And now there's still a little bit of work to do, but we're pretty far along. We've combined the data. We've figured out everyone's ages. I didn't call that out before, but we did at least accomplish that. So now we've got to figure out who's a finalist and then sort all our runners based on their result times. So we're going to start with the finalist task. We see there are 2 ways to be a finalist. Either be one of the 2 fastest in your race or be one of the 2 fastest that didn't qualify based off Rule 1. So we'll start with Rule 1. That'll make things a little simpler. We want to find the 2 fastest runners in each race. And thankfully, we've got this combined races where we've already got all of the details pulled together. So I actually want to build a query starting off with what's in combined races. So I am going to right-click here, and you see just under duplicate, there's actually reference. So this is going to pull out a query where our first step is to reference the combined races query. You see it just like that, equals combined races. And that could have been anything. It could be equals race 1, equals race 2. I'll actually just show you real quickly. If it was equals race 1, we're just having our starting point be the race 1 one. Now we want it to be combined races. The reason this is so valuable is, and why I'm sort of modularizing this, is now if I find out I made a mistake in combined races, I can just go and alter my combined races query, change whatever steps need to be changed, if I need to do something beyond just changing them. But all of those changes will automatically flow through into my next query that I'm building on top of it. It's just sort of the same way you use a cell reference to help make it easier if you need to make a change in one place and have it carry it through all of the different parts of your workbook that might be impacted. We've got these great building blocks by referencing queries across one another. You can actually even reference different steps within a query later on in that same query, because it's all just the same idea. You've got this name here, combined races, that represents a series of get and transform steps that can be pulled back in at any point. So, sorry again, I know I've gone on another side note, but like I said, I told you ahead of time, I do love this tool. I love showing all the different options you have on how powerful it is. So we need to get to that key point of we need to figure out finalists based off their race rank. We know it's the top 2. So I'm actually going to filter this thing down to just the top 2 people based off race rank. Now I've got 6 people here, 2 from each race, you can see. And now I'm going to add a column and it's going to be our finalist column because that was one of the requirements. We need a table that has a finalist column that is true or false. And these people that we're looking at now, since they were top 2 in their race, they are all finalists. So I'm just going to have this column be equal to true. And I'll point out there, true, slightly different than how you write it when you're writing in cells. You would type that all caps. Not a big deal, but I do want to make sure people start to spot some of the smaller syntax differences between using the query editor and using traditional Excel formulas. One more step just to make sure we're keeping track and being sane. I'm going to rename these steps so we know what they say. We filtered to race rank 1 and 2. Yeah, 1 and 2. And we've added the finalist column. Added finalist column. So this isn't combined races 2. A more meaningful query name would be finalists based on race rank. Very long, but at least we know exactly what we're looking at in this query now. Going to do the same thing. Home, close and load 2. We've got another query that's appeared here, and it is only a creation. Again, just another one of our building blocks. We're getting there. It's a little bit long, and I will say again, lots of different ways you can tackle this, right? I'm just showing you one approach, and I'm trying to make it as modular as possible so you can really understand every step along the way. Okay, so we figured out part of our finalists. Now we need to find out the rest of the group. So I'm going to go back to the combined races. I'm going to reference it again in a new query, and I'll just start off by naming this query as, not a race rank winner, maybe. Or no, let's be exact. Before we had finalists based off race rank, finalists after race rank, right? This is our rule 2 people we're calculating here. And so that first step is looking at the race rank. We've already figured out the 1s and 2s. They already made it into the finals. So we will get them out of this query. And just to be exact, we are going to rename this step filtered out race rank 1 and 2. Now the next thing we need to do is, again, figure out the 2 fastest people left in this group here. They make it to the finals. Everyone else doesn't. We know how to do this. We did it when we were doing the individual races. We will sort ascending by result time, and then we'll throw in one of those index columns. So under add column, add index. Now we've got this new column that gives us numbers 1 through 18, it looks like. And let's just give this something, a more useful name rather than index. We'll call this rank remaining races. Yeah, remaining race rank. Or I guess remaining runners rank probably is the best. And again, just to keep track, add remaining runners rank. Again, you don't have to do all these name changes. I just do it so we can keep track of what all is going on. Okay, so we have our list of runners. The top 2, these 2, numbers 1 and 2, they make it to the finals. Everyone else doesn't. So we need to add that finalist column again. But we need to have it conditionally based off of their result time or off of this runner's rank, remainers running rank. So we have this option under add column to add a conditional column. So I'm going to pop that open, and a little helper dialog is going to come in, this new column name. I'm going to call it finalist again. Let's see here. Sorry, I'm having trouble with my mouse. The finalist column is going to say if the remaining runners rank, that index column we just built, is less than or equal to 2. In other words, the 2 fastest people, they make it into the finals. Otherwise, if you weren't one of the 2 fastest, you don't. It's false. And I'll just say you can actually do many. We could add more rules. If this, else if this, just like you would nest ifs in a regular cell format. We don't need to do any fancy nesting here. We've got enough with just this simple true, false. I'll click OK. We're going to make two comments here. If you see the code that's generated here, we've got this add column, finalist, where if the remaining runner's rank is less than 2, we get true. Otherwise, we get false. I click that arrow to expand the formula bar. I'll point out this if, then, otherwise, or if, then, else, little bit different. It's pretty close to conditional formulas or if formulas in a cell in the regular spreadsheet. Minor tweaks, though, to actually have this then written and else written as opposed to just commas. This looks a little bit more like traditional computer programming code. Again, just trying to point out some of those minor syntax differences as you get more comfortable moving back and forth between the traditional grid spreadsheet world and the get and transform query editor. Knowing these little tweaks will help you get along faster and not bang your head as like, what did I do wrong? The other thing I'm going to call out, and this is more just in the UI of the conditional column button that we use, it actually took our information and turned it into string, the string true and the string false. They're in quotes. To be consistent with what we've written before, we actually want the Boolean values, and Boolean is just a fancy way of saying true or false, a logical value. The only reason two reasons we do this. One, it's actually really nice. True false is very, very small to store, right? It's a 0 or a 1. There's only two options, as opposed to the full text TRUE and the full text FALSE. So just storage-wise, actually performance-wise, if when you're making comparisons, it's what's easier to check for a regular old Boolean logical true 0, 1, as opposed to search for the text TRU and confirm that matches some other text TRUE. Other thing is, in the finalists based off race rank, we did do this correctly as a Boolean true false. So we want these all to look the same for when we combine them together. So very long-winded, of course. I'm going to hit enter again to commit these, and you'll see visually it changes to all caps. That makes it very clear in the Excel world that you are dealing with Boolean values. I'm going to rename this to add finalist column. So we have got now, close and load to, we've got finalists based on race rank, and we've got finalists after race rank. And hey, you know what? I'm going to be really picky and make sure these look exactly the same. Finalists. Okay. So now we need to put these two together, finalists based on race rank and finalists after race rank, because that's our end result. But we know how to do this, right? We can combine queries. And actually, if you just right-click, we don't have to go up to the data ribbon. We have the option down here. Here are combine options, merge or append. And what are we doing here? We've basically got the same exact columns in two tables, and we need to combine the rows. So that is an append, just like the icon shows us. So I'm going to append finalists based on race rank with finalists after race rank. So super simple step. It's got everyone thrown in here now. And I want to simplify this down a little bit. We don't need all these columns here. I think the question required us to maybe just have race number, country. Actually, easiest to just do this in the ribbon. We will choose columns, and we will choose to keep, I'd say, the race number, the country, athlete number, the name. We don't need all this birthday information. We'll keep the result time. We do want the age. That was a requirement. And we want the finalist column. So I'll click OK. shrink this down a little bit more manageable. Fits on one screen. The other thing I'll say, let me step back a second. There's one column here, remaining runners rank. You see, we didn't make a remaining runners rank for those that qualified in the finals based off their just straight race rank, right? We filtered them out first and gave them a true immediately. Now, when we combined our queries together, the column existed in one table, didn't exist in the other, and so the result is that it shows up here, and where it didn't exist, those roles just have a null to show you that there was no value applied. It's not a zero, it's not a blank string, it's null. It didn't exist. I just wanted to point that out for reference. You know, if you are doing stuff where you combine queries, you do have this option to sort of understand where data existed and where it didn't. Okay, so removed all these columns. I think we've got one last step. That is to do some sorting. We know the style of sorting we would like to do. We want to keep them based on result time, sort ascending, and we want to follow that up by breaking ties by using the athlete number, sort ascending. And this looks like a query we would want to use as our final answer. So I'm going to call this answer 01 underscore 01. We're going to do close and load too, and yeah, we're going to mix things up a little bit. Instead of making this only a creation, we'll do a table, and we will drop it into the response section of our worksheet here. If I can get there. Response section, that looks like a good spot. Hit OK, and load. And now it's actually running all those steps that we've done. Again, I'll say we used quite a few queries. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to get to our final answer. Lots of different approaches you could do, but this gave us a very sort of modularized approach so we could see each step along the way and get it done. Last step I'm going to do, again, to keep things organized, I want to move this last query up into our answer 0101 group. But here we go. A data relays question completed. Thanks for sticking around through all of that.